Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us once again today on Dojo Live. My name is Kim Lantis, and I'm happy to be hosting here live from Hermosillo, Sonora, Mexico. Joining me is my wonderful co-host, America Guerrero.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, America. I know we talked about this morning, and I can't remember where you said you are. Are you in Mexico City again? Or no, you're in Merida.
No,
I said Mexico City. I said
very
Cancun. Both were wrong.
near, but different places.
Perfect. And today's guest, the star of the show, is Dave Bunce, who is the CEO of Morphio and coming from Toronto.
Yes, balmy, warm Toronto, 95 degrees today, beautiful day, and excited to be chatting with you.
Yeah, that almost sounds like something you don't hear. Balmy, warm Toronto.
I know.
Sure. Thank you so much for joining us, Dave. We really look forward to speaking with you and learning from you today. We're really talking about how to get rid of those silos, and it's going to be an exciting talk. But before we get into that, we would like to get to know you a bit better. Who is Dave? What makes you tick, and how did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, so Dave is an interesting mix of an accountant who became an entrepreneur, like very different worlds. But so I started my career in my formal education as a chartered accountant. So spent 7 years working for one of the big four big four firms, and that was a great training ground. Learned a lot. But at the end of the day, I was like, I need to do something small scale, feel an impact directly on a business and kind of build something myself. And I think Dave, when you say, who is Dave? Dave's a builder. So I'm that person that kind of takes pieces and puts them together and connects dots. And I think that leads to kind of the thesis for today around siloed and isolation and bringing things together is I know the value of bringing pieces from different functions together, and that's why I'm excited to chat about it today.
Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting talk. Thank you for sharing. So the company you're with, CEO of, is Morphio. Tell us a bit about Morphio.
Yeah, so I'll start where I left off of. I did a bunch of time in public accounting. It's funny when I say a bunch of time, sounds like I didn't enjoy it, but I did.
You've been released.
Yes, that's right. I didn't want to say that, but yes. I left to join a digital marketing company that was growing rapidly here in Toronto area. And we were going through a bunch of pain points that come along with growth. We were two-time recipients of Deloitte's Fast 50 growing companies in Canada, North America 500 list, all this great stuff. But under the surface, there was operational challenges, and that's what I was brought in to figure out. And so through that initiative and that endeavor, we started building a piece of technology that we wanted to use to help break down our functional barriers between our accounts people, our marketing team, and our finance team. And so Morphio was born. And so we incubated it within our own agency, our own company. And then to kind of fast forward, we sold the agency at a point and ended 2019-ish to say, let's make a go out of Morphio, make it its own business. So we spun it out, made it its own product. We've been in market for about 1.5 years now, and the agency continues to do well. And we've set it adrift with its new owners, and it's doing well. But that's what Morphio is. Yeah.
What a great time to start out.
That's right. Yeah, there was a few months, February, March, April 2020. That was a tough time to be in a startup, but good to be out of the marketing business.
Yeah, for sure. And what's interesting about your story is that a lot of the companies that we speak with on Dojo Live have come out from a similar story, like their own need. And then, hey, this is a business opportunity. So it's really great. So let's talk a bit more about siloing. What is the topic as chosen by Dave today, America?
Sure. So the topic is using tech to connect siloed functions. How can technology and data democratization help traditionally disconnected business functions understand each other better? So please, could you, Dave, explain us more about this? Why did you choose this topic? Why is it relevant for today?
Yeah, it's great. I think the biggest challenge people have in business right now is reaching consensus on numbers. And of course, I'm going to bring that lens as an accountant. But I mean, among other things, there is so much data out there right now in the world, right? And everybody has their tools, and each department has their suite of software that they're using. And I talk to companies all the time that say, our SaaS subscription cost is just going up and up because we keep adding all these tools, and our teams want access to all this data and information. But I think it's all about how you use the data, and when is too much data not a good thing. Mm-hmm. And so what my whole premise of talking here today about is, how can you use technology to get everybody on the same playing field? And how do you pick and choose which technology and what metrics matter to you, rather than having each individual department managing their own KPIs in their own software and in their own sort of functional expertise? How do they bring those pieces of information out of those boxes to be shared across the siloed functions so that everybody has the same access to information to make good strategic decisions?
Very cool. So when you talk about the traditionally disconnected business functions, who are these big players within our organizations? Or who are you catering to specifically?
Yeah, so the case study that I naturally gravitate towards is marketing and finance. Mm-hmm. So marketing has the job of, seemingly from a finance person's perspective, they have this job of putting out ads and, making TV commercials and all of those fun things. And finance, on the other hand, in marketing's eyes, is the fun police who, monitor budgets and crack down on expenses. And so there's these two, very different perceptions. And in reality, there is a point where those two functions intersect. And that is at the point of digital or marketing ROI. What are we getting for this investment? Nice. And I intentionally use the word investment because in an accountant's brain and in accounting rules, what you spend on marketing gets expensed. It is a cost, and it is something that is to be controlled, and it is, a hindrance to profit. Whereas, an investment truly in what marketing does is building brand loyalty, customer lists, captured by an accountant on a balance sheet. So that's where I think, the case study I have to kind of talk through is marketing and finance. There's a point in time, particularly in e-commerce companies, where those two worlds intersect. Mm-hmm. And it's important that the two of them agree on where it intersects and how they're measuring that point.
All right. So we're talking about that Venn diagram, little oblong space.
Yes.
So it is. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Just one quick question, Rika. That Venn diagram space, is that going to vary from organization to organization, or how are we determining that sweet spot?
Great question. I think the fundamental concept of where that Venn diagram meets is where or how you track the results. And by results, I mean sales, essentially, but then also the customer loyalty and lifetime value. Then that's where the intersection happens. So you have this handoff of marketing saying, okay, we'll do the ads and we'll get people to sign up for our email list and all of that. And then there's this point where once it becomes a matter of defining triggering goals, whether it be a sale or whether it be them going into your CRM, whatever that pivot point is, it's right there. It's the point where somebody who was interested converts to being a customer. And now suddenly finance needs to have better visibility or clarity or reporting. And that does vary a bit by business. Like in an e-commerce business, that acquisition or lead time is going to be very quick, potentially, right? I go on the site, I buy something and it's done. Yes, it could be a lot longer, I know, depending on the nature of it. But in other cases and other cycles, particularly say professional services, that lead time of lead to close, that could be months or years.
Right. But hopefully the engagement is also months or years to compensate.
That's right.
America, go ahead.
Yeah, so my question is this diagram that we're talking about, this intersection between finance and marketing, this is one of the values that you provide. I mean, this whole representation, or what else could you share with us?
Yeah. So Morphio, for example, and in general, just the marketing technology that marketers need to be deploying, need to be able to track or trace the investment they're making to not just a one-time transaction, but to a longer-term value. And so, for example, the classic example in e-commerce is if it costs me $50 to acquire a customer, and that customer comes and buys something today and they spend $50, that's break even. And let's say it's on a margin, like it's $100, but the cost of the thing was 50, so you net 50. Okay, fine. So it's 50, so it's break even. In the eyes of the business, that's not necessarily anything special. But when that person comes back in 3 months because you have them in an email marketing campaign to say, hey, look at our Father's Day special, or we have Black Friday, Cyber Monday deals. Now there's value. And now that $50, aside from sending them the email that costs probably 5 cents a transaction, you just got another $50 sale, and then another one and another one. So understanding that lifetime value is now that example of the cross-functional measurement that we need to be able to provide, or marketers need to be able to provide, in order to connect the marketer's value with accounting numbers.
Yep. I'm interested in understanding this. I think you've laid it out very clearly for the business side. I'm assuming that the data that you're pulling as well helps us understand what we need to replicate very clearly. This worked, this didn't work. And then now me as a marketer spending my money more wisely. Mm-hmm. Finance is happy about that and everybody's happy. So business-wise, it makes a lot of sense. What else is happening then, like the benefits of a tool like yours internally? What are we seeing happen with the organizations themselves and the teams? Is there any shift there?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. What I think the biggest shift is the ability to have more dynamic discussions on capital allocation or funds or budget allocation. And what I mean by that is, again, you're coming at this with marketing, with sales, with finance, all around the table, and potentially even, if you expand out to be any type of business that has inventory or production of those goods, you're now looking at being able to see and understand in one place the purchasing patterns, as well as the budgets and the products that are moving, right, and selling and this and that. So you now can make decisions of like, oh, in this region, we are seeing these 3 products really moving on our e-commerce store. Okay, why is that? Can we make more of them? What is the cost of that? Now you're suddenly having a conversation, not just about like, oh, I'm going to spend an extra $1,000 on this marketing campaign. You're now having a business conversation about, like, from a inventory management perspective, how much of this inventory do we have? Do we need to move it? Is there stuff that's been sitting in our warehouse for a year that we need to sell? Where is it being sold? Who's buying it? What campaigns? What creative is working? All of that marketing activity needs to be cohesively aligned, because I've seen good and bad examples where e-commerce businesses in particular, but businesses in general, end up losing money because they're sitting on inventory and they haven't connected their marketing campaigns, or they've lost sales opportunities, right? Because, oh, people love this product that we have, but we don't have enough inventory to fulfill. So that's the democratization of data for all teams to be aware of, to say, this is what's happening in our lead generation. How do we plan the business to match that lead generation needs? And now you've got operations and inventory and sales and accounting all around the table, talking about that one piece of information that historically would sit in some spreadsheet with one marketer, in one department.
I like your approach to the business of, perhaps getting rid of inventory that needs to sell and how can we market that? But then also, wait, that's a successful campaign, but we can't commit to that promise yet. And then protecting your brand, right? And not having to deal, even coming down the line with, customer service or refunds or cancellations or whatever that might entail. That's great. That's really great. America, did you have a question? Sorry.
Not really. I was minutes before the show, I was reading your Morphio missions, and I read that you make marketers happier and powerful and effective. But this is not just for marketers. This is for the whole organization. This works as an holistic process, and it's really interesting. But no, I don't have other question. Should we shift to?
No, I do have a question. Now, as you were speaking with your technology, it applies most to goods, right? E-commerce but we did mention services. Do you have clients, or is this in the service areas, or how might we be shifting toward that?
Yeah, we do. And I think what needs to be understood by service businesses in particular, or lead generation businesses, is getting a sense of control on their closing rates and their cost of closing a sale. And so good example is here in Canada, when we were running our digital agency, we were doing, one of our largest clients was a fitness gym, fitness clubs. And, obviously the last few years haven't been great, but this was before that.
Yay,
before that.
COVID.
Yay. But what was so important was that we were doing the marketing for them, working with their marketing team on large campaigns to get people to fill out a form for a 14-day free trial of our clubs, or talking to a sales rep, or whatever the case may be. That had a cost associated with it, right? So we're spending all this money on marketing, and we had this many leads. Therefore, the cost per lead is, let's call it $50 a lead. That's my magic number today, $50. So we got this $50 a lead number, which is great. But now, so that's a marketing number. And they may have in their model, in their spreadsheet from finance, a target for that lead number. So great, we hit our number. Our target was 50 and we're at 50, win for marketing, right? Pat on the back. Then you go to sales though, and what you find on the other end of that conversation is a closing rate issue or a quality lead issue, right? So now you're getting into qualified marketing lead, qualified sales leads, what defines quality or success in those leads. And so what you end up with is, again, going back to breaking down the silos, marketing needing to hear and understand the feedback on where those closing leads, who does buy in the end and who doesn't, and at what rate, and where did they come from. And that closed loop is so important. And that's something, candidly, that like Morphio can do a bit of, but also typically lives within our true CRM, right?
Okay.
So that part is, that's the closing the loop though of sales, who would manage typically the CRM, and marketing, who would manage the ad platforms. Again, they need to bring information out of those pieces of tech to share with each other what's working. And so that's the example of they may be targeting $50 leads, and they were expecting to close 1 out of 20 or 1 out of 5, so 20% on the sales side. But the sales team says, well, for leads you're getting on Google, we're only closing them at 10%.
Right.
And so now we got to figure out why Google leads are not as good as the others. Is it a targeting issue? Is it because marketing was patting themselves on the back and sales is pulling their hair out? And so how do we share those pieces of information again to bridge those gaps?
So really good information, really good points. How is Morphio working into this exactly? What does your platform look like for your clients? What information are you gathering? How are you distributing that information? How are you facilitating these conversations?
Yes, great question. So within Morphio specifically, it's a few things. One, we focus on both paid advertising platform and also website results. So typically in our space, there's not as many tools that manage both of those things. You can have your paid ads like, hey, I can plug in this software and it's going to tell me what keywords to use for Google Ads. That's great. But where's the breadth and where's the cross-platform analysis, and how does that link to your website? So our role is connecting your paid marketing ecosystem with what's happening on your website or e-commerce store, pairing those two things together. And then to your point, Kimberly, on like, how does this, achieve the mission of sharing information and all of that? few things. One is that we have budget monitoring, budget pacing, and business KPIs built into the software where you can get real-time alerts to understand what's happening in your business. So finance doesn't have to wait till the end of the month to know that we have a cost per lead issue or that our budget is overspending this month. Finance can find that out with marketing at the same time, in real time, to know that, hey, you're heading for some trouble. Your results are off pace this month. Yesterday, you had a bad day in sales. Let's go fix it. And so that's how technology can really help break that down, is not necessarily giving more information, but giving the information faster and in the hands of more people to make informed decisions. And so, the other example you say of like, how does Morphio accomplish this? For example, we have a reporting summary that is a live shareable link with marketing KPIs, with website KPIs, all in one spot. So the marketer can give their finance person, can give their business owner this dashboard and say, here's how we're performing. You can check it out anytime. See how we're trending towards our goals. See how we're comparing to last year. See how we're comparing to last month. Where we projected to end up. So Morphio applies predictive analytics to give you a projection for the end of the month as well. So all of that is how our software comes into the equation, among other tools as well. But our real important piece is, how do we get this information of leading indicators of business success out of just the marketer's hands and into the hands of everybody in the business, so there's no surprises?
I noticed that you said alerts. I imagine that you can also learn with this platform. I mean, at the beginning, if I'm an entrepreneur and I have it, I'm starting to use it, I will receive alerts, and then that at some point it will be less, right? Is this something that happened with your clients?
Yes. So what happens is, and this is now just getting down a little like marketing nerdy talk, but the ad platforms particularly,
it's fine.
the advertising platforms, particularly, for example, Google Ads, has often what's called a learning phase for campaigns. So they go through this experience of when either you set up a new campaign or you make significant changes to a campaign, it goes into this mode within those platforms of, we're trying to figure it out, basically. And it's like the platforms say, expect some volatility. There's going to be variance in your results. It's their way of like, let's just try things. Give us some money and some budgets and let's go. And so, for example, with Morphio, we're gathering that information as well and formulating expectations of where your results are going to be and where they should be based on both your business as well as others in the industry, and benchmarking your data and giving you suggestions. So your point on learning, great example would be you launch a campaign and it runs for a week, and we highlight, based on your industry, based on any ads you've ran before, etc., this metric is really causing a problem, or in this region, it's really not working. We suggest you change XYZ things, or here are some ideas. Then they go and implement, and then we give them the feedback loop a week later, or as it goes on, like, did this get better? Did it not? Did the problem get solved? And so that learning point that you make, America, is great, because it's all about sort of learning, and doing it faster than waiting for the end of the month.
For sure. We're coming up close to be talking about Morphio's company culture. But before we get that in, I do have one last question. Sorry, my daughter's Tamagotchi needs to be fed or something. You can hear that beeping.
That's better than the birds that I have in my background.
Maybe it is a bird, type of bird, still has needs. So this comes down to you with different teams and wanting to disrupt those silos. What does this look like for your platform in terms of like your user interface or your user experience? What kind of design did you kind of test into or land on to make it work for everyone?
Yeah, great question. The answer is a very simple design, like a clean interface. Often tools, especially ones that are sold at enterprise levels, are designed to be complicated. And our goal is to not be complicated. Maybe some people find it, but I don't think so. In general, the feedback we get is like, it's easy to use, or like, I can look at the picture that we give. The data visualization is very important for us. Like, really quickly, what's red, what's green, what's up, what's down, and here's where you need to pay attention and here's what's not important. And that fundamental sort of design approach, as simple as it sounds, is actually very important. I think the other one too is not just giving everything, all the data to marketers all at once in one spot and just having a, giant massive table of, number barf, right? Like here's
that's what we're gonna tweet on this one.
Yeah.
Number barf. Avoid
Yeah.
number barf with Morphio.
Yes, that's right. So it's about like picking the right metrics, letting them choose what matters to their business, and seeing those 5 things and only those 5 things, and not just overwhelming. And I think that's how we've designed it, is to be, what we call accessible AI.
That's fantastic. What about your culture? You're giving this happiness feeling to marketers. How do you give this happiness feeling to your employees, or is this like a core value? What could you share?
Yeah. So Morphio is we're in a really neat spot because we were born within our own digital marketing agency. We brought some of our favorite folks from that business into Morphio to start it. And so we were able to establish, or already have established, sort of core values and principles of how do we work together. And we were able to take the good parts of what we had and then add to it. And so the part that I think comes through, particularly for us on Siloed, is, and obviously this can't work necessarily at scale, but with our team size, having all functional teams on our team stand-ups in the morning. And even as simple as that, it's not a large team, but the idea of like sales and marketing know at least, every week what product is working on. A product knows what sales and marketing is hearing. And then we have, those sort of adjudicated brainstorming sessions once a month from our product owner, who runs those things and says like, okay, product, what's working in the product, what's not, sales, what are you hearing, and bringing it all together. And we have that kind of facilitator to those discussions. So going back to the siloed functions thing, is if you can build it into your cadence of having cross-functional conversations, even if it's an executive team that's cross-functional, more frequently, and sharing and disseminating that information out more frequently, it creates, I think, a better company culture where there's mutual respect and understanding, as opposed to, the ease of getting into finger pointing as you grow and disconnect those functions.
That's a really interesting conversation, and I look forward to seeing Morphio grow and scale. And I think it would be a great conversation for you to come back as the leader to say, this is how we were able to take that model and scale it as well. I mean, it's going to make for a really, really great conversation. Dave, it's been can you believe it? We're the end of the show already. It's quick.
Yeah,
it's quick.
I talk a lot. It happened quick.
No. You got things worth saying. That's for sure. Thank you so much for being on Dojo Live today. We appreciate learning from you about Morphio, and we look forward to more conversations. Hang on just a minute as we're about to go off air. But America, what do we got coming up the rest of the week?
Yes, tomorrow we are going to have a conversation with Christopher Greco. He is the president and CEO at Storewise, interesting name for a company. And he's going to talk about how software helps local grocers make better decisions. That is going to be tomorrow. And for June 2nd, we are going to have Matt Burns. He is the head of corporate affairs, and he is going to talk about from startups to solving healthcare's biggest challenges. So don't miss it.
Oh, geez. That will be a good one.
Yes.
Thank you so much again. Check us out here, 12 o'clock Pacific, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, Dojo Live. Thanks again, Dave.